Hi there, I'm Kerry Kennedy, and I'm happy to be with everyone tonight. We have a great panel. We have our filmmaker, Evgeny Afineevsky, who has made this extraordinary film about the Pope and has a long career in filmmaking as well. Father James Martin is a Jesuit priest, a leader in the Catholic movement and the progressive arm of the Catholic Church in the United States. And the great Nobel Peace Prize winner, José Ramos-Horta, one of my dear, dear friends for over a quarter of a century. So looking forward to hearing from all of you tonight. Evgeny, let's begin with you. This film focuses on Pope Francis tackling some of the world's most pressing issues, from climate change to human rights violations, to the plight of refugees. Talk about why you decided to make this documentary about Pope Francis and how he is different from other popes.
First of all, thank you everybody for coming together for this amazing panel. Thank you, Kerry, for making it happen with all of us. I think what uniting us all is to bring change to this world. When I did my previous movies like Winter on Fire or Cries from Syria, I realized that the world have a lot of disasters, a lot of fights, a lot of issues, and we as humanity created these disasters. So I realized that yes, we really need to do something. And I also saw that my way of storytelling becoming a call for action. It's advocacy, it's activism, and an action. But I wanted to switch after the Cries from Syria and Winter on Fire to something that I can bring hope, light, humanity to the people. And I was looking for a role model that can bring us to this point where we can see hope for the future, where we can see inspiration and light. And you know what? Somebody suggested me to start to learn about Pope Francis and his initiatives. And I saw that interface that I witnessed in Maidan in Ukraine in 2013-14 during their revolution, and amazing unity that I saw also there on Ukrainian square, where people achieved victory only because of unity. It's all close to his heart. And then I saw the refugee plight, also close to his heart. So I realized that's the role model of the human being that I want to portray and help me to bring the hope and love to the 21st century of today's world, to us. And I guess that's what brought me to tackle stories that we've seen in the movie and him as the guide us through all these disasters that we created. I guess that was the point where I said, he is the person that I want to tell stories through him.
That's so beautiful. And it really comes through in the film, how much hope he brings to people around the world, how much inspiration. And I like your call to action. So it's not just being inspired or hopeful, but now what are you going to do about it? We have another panelist with us here, José Ramos-Horta, who's been such a good and dear friend of mine for almost a quarter of a century now. It seems hard to believe, Jose, but somebody who also has worked for peace, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for your nonviolent work on behalf of the people of your country and around the world. So tell us, what do you see as the characteristics of Pope Francis that are important for those who are in the quest for peace?
It was in the worst of our struggle when Pope John Paul II came to Timor-Leste. And the first time a Pope came to our country. And it was he who put Timor-Leste on the map, elevated Timor-Leste on the international stage. Pope Francesco is a whole different personality, similar to John Paul II, of course, older, but he comes from Argentina. He lived through his childhood, his youth, adult life understanding, knowing, observing close up dictatorships, violence, torture, disappearances. And he is a Jesuit. And the Jesuit, I have a great admiration for Jesuits. One of the Timorese priest Jesuits, he has 2 PhDs, one from Sorbonne, one from Germany, and the summa cum laude, and he speaks 16 languages.
Wow.
So these people are extraordinarily educated. And so Papa Francisco, what can you say? He is a true philosopher, intellectual, theologian, and above all, and equally, he's a humanist, humanitarian, and he has captivating personality. He has an army, quote unquote, an army of more than 1 billion people. That his strength. So a pope is always a pope. And then depends on the personality of that pope, how to re-inspire the more than 1 billion people. But Papa Francisco even goes beyond the Catholics of the world. He has reached out to the Muslims. He has met with the Orthodox Church of Russia. After hundreds of years of no talking to each other, they met in Havana, Papa Francisco and the Pope of the Russian Orthodox Church. As I understand, after almost 1,000 years of split. So this is extraordinary, the power that this Pope has in bringing together Muslims, Protestants, Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, and everybody. So his incredible intellect, his incredible heart, his incredible personality, it makes all the difference.
Thank you, Jose. You know, the what's really striking, I think, is his humility from the moment he becomes Pope, asking the people to pray for him, his very first act. And throughout the movie, you can really see that in the way he treats people. When some of the Rohingya refugees were trying to be shoved off the stage, how he put an end to it, and so touching. But one of the things that was really striking to me about this film is all over the world, he was looking at times when governments had oppressed their people and the devastating consequences of that. The only storyline that's really different, where he takes full responsibility, is when it comes, of course, to the pedophile scandal. And where he starts, it's such a great way, you tell that story, but he starts by defending the priests, and then he comes back in the end and issues a full apology, meets with the victims, and demands accountability from all of the bishops in Chile. So, Father Martin, watching that film was so confusing, because he says, you are gay, God made you gay, and God loves you. And then yet this week, or just last week, a few days ago, the church said that priests cannot bless unions. So can you talk about that? Explain how this works within the church.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to be with you, Kerry, and it's an honor to be with you and Jose and Evgeny to talk about this incredible film. Yeah, and that's probably one of the hardest questions to answer. How can this be?
That's why I gave it to you.
I know. How can this be? So basically, to help people understand the context without getting into too many details, there's a synod of bishops in Germany going on right now, which is a sort of a countrywide meeting. And they were talking about the possibility very explicitly of blessing same-sex unions. Some of the German bishops were talking about that. Someone sent a request to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is the kind of theological watchdog group for the Vatican, about this, probably intending to nip it in the bud and to sort of drive the nail in the coffin of this discussion. And the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith came out and said, no, you can't do it, in very harsh language, not just no, you can't do it, but the language of sin. And then from what we understand, Pope Francis, who was, Jose was talking about his going all over the world, was on his way to Iraq. And apparently this was put in front of him in a somewhat rushed way. And he affirmed it. He said it could be published. And so it's caused a lot of distress among people, who had, as you said, Kerry, who had come to expect him to be a much more pastoral presence. And so it's hard to explain, but I think you're also looking at a pope who, Jose was saying a pope is a pope. A pope is also, in a sense, part of this bureaucracy, right? And so he's part of that. I don't think he's going to change church teaching on homosexuality, but I do think what has changed, which the film says very beautifully, is his outreach to people. And the film shows encounters that he's had with LGBTQ people. And so I think that, he has really moved the ball ahead, even considering last week's pronouncement by the CDF.
I see. Thank you. Thank you, Father. Jenny, do you have a thought about that, a comment on it?
Yes, I think I can comment on this because from my interactions with Holy Father and from the reality that I observed, because for me, words are words and actions are actions. And Holy Father is the man of action. We can see in the movie a real video testimony of all his incredible actions towards humanity and the people. And one of these actions that we can see in the movie, that he truly cared about people of non-traditional sexual orientation, like myself or Juan Carlos or the gay couple who have any kids. And it's a really true testament is in the movie. So I think in a situation that we are right now with this announcement, I think, like Father Martin said it was rushed in front of him. We do not know if he completely was aware of the context, because context is wrongful words. And I think at the end of the day, we can't have gay community judging him in that case, because he is true ally of the gay community. He's still trying to do step-by-step changes in a Catholic church. He is making step-by-step. It's institution. Through 3 years of making movie, I saw how step-by-step he trying to advance church into the 21st century, either on the subject of the women, whom he's trying to implement and bring more and more women into the structure of the church, or lay people, or bring more transparency into the church, trying to create more visual transparency so people can see what in reality happening. So I think that I don't want to say that change will happen tomorrow, but what he is trying to do, step by step, create a welcoming atmosphere, welcoming ability to the church to bring everybody into the church back. And I think that's the mission of any pastor. And the most important, to protect against discrimination, to allow people to have equal rights with anybody else. And that's what I think I felt through all my interaction with him and through the actions that I witnessed around me.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, the one thing that's totally clear coming through this movie is the extraordinary compassion of this man. And I think that that's why this has caused so much confusion. Jose, one of the two of the issues that you fought so hard for are on behalf of refugees and on climate change. Of course, East Timor is a nation that will be particularly hard hit as climate change increases across the globe. What do you think the impact of the Pope's new approaches to both of those issues will be?
Obviously, in many of the challenges that humanity face, for people, for powers to move, and for communities also to get more engaged, is when there is strong moral leadership, persuasive leadership. So when His Holiness Papa Francesco speak out on climate change, on sustainable development, on equity, fair distribution of the vaccine, COVID vaccine. Yes, that's carry incredible weight, far more than 50 governments together. So it's extraordinary contribution by His Holiness on raising more and more awareness in the countries that contribute most to pollution in the world, but also in our own respective countries. I keep saying in my own country, I have been to the streets over the years when I was president, doing beach cleaning, street cleaning with my bare hands, only to shame those who throw garbage in the beach, those who throw garbage in the wayside. And television will follow. For me, I would care less about television, but television followed me, and that was great because then others would see the people, our people, and would be embarrassed that the president is cleaning the streets, the forest, and so on. So coming from the Pope has even greater impact. We as a small country, fortunately, we are not an atoll, like in Pacific, like Maldives. We are 75% mountains. You have been here. Your nephew, Joe Kennedy, has been here. Patrick Kennedy has been here. So 3 Kennedys have been to my country. So this is a very mountainous country. But we have, obviously, we have coastal areas. But there are also the issue of rainfall, and very irregular for farmers. In the past, on 2nd November each year, 1 p.m. rains start, like Swiss clock. Well, now it can start in December, in January, and it goes on and on, non-stop, or suddenly it stops. So very difficult for farmers to grow rice, corn, vegetables, very difficult for our coffee growers, for the coffee harvest season, all of that. And what is our responsibility in all of this? Well, Timor-Leste is one of the countries that, in terms of CO2 emission, we contribute with 0.000%, it meaning nothing. But I keep telling our people, let's not point fingers blaming everybody else. Let's plant trees, let's clean the country, clean the river, clean the lake, clean the sea, and at least this island will be reforested, will be greener. And we are doing that. European Union has given us a fair amount of money to do tree planting. The communities themselves are doing it, hundreds of thousands of trees being planted and growing. Each member of the community gets $1 per tree that he or she grows. Nice. So this process is going on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jose. Always both inspiring and action-oriented, and we love that about you. Father Martin, it's the Easter season. Easter is coming up in 2 weeks. It's the season of hope. What should we be hoping for? What is it about this film that should give us hope? What is it about this Pope that should fill us with hope?
Well, the Pope is the one who is the conveyor of hope, and the hope, the hopeful message that he gives is the hope of the gospel. And so for Christians, it's the hope of the resurrection. I think that the message of Jesus Christ is, there are many messages, but that nothing is impossible with God. And so Jose was talking about climate change, and we were talking about sex abuse before, and Evgeny talked about refugees, and there's so many, and I know, Kerry, you work with a whole lot of different causes and groups. There's so many things that seem overwhelming. And what the Pope shows us by his dogged persistence and his trust that things will be better and that things can be made better is his belief in the resurrection and belief that God is with us in all of these things. I think that you can't get away from a religious message here from the Pope, and nor would the Pope want us to. And so it's based on the belief that God is with us. And I think in a lot of campaigns for social justice and for climate change and on behalf of refugees, I worked with refugees for 2 years in East Africa. Sometimes people can get discouraged because they don't see the results in front of them, right? I mean, they're still refugees, no matter how hard you work. There's still problems with climate change. There is still, unfortunately, sex abuse in the Catholic Church, right? No matter how hard we try to combat it. But the Christian believes that that God is with us in this, and that we might not see the results. There's that famous prayer by attributed to Oscar Romero that says, I plant the seeds that others will harvest. And so I think that's a very hopeful message, and I think it prevents us from getting discouraged, right? And I really like one of the words that Jose used. He said that the Pope has re-inspired us, right? I mean, we're already inspired for those of us who are Christians, and for people who are moral people and who look to him and look to other people. They're already inspired by people, but he has, in a sense, re-inspired us to look at these. And he's a very hopeful person. I mean, you have to be hopeful to be able to go to Iraq, speak to various communities, confront the physical dangers that are there, and keep a smile on your face and succeed too, which he did. So
beautiful.
His message is the message of Christian hope, I would say.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And Jenny, this is a 2-hour film, and it leaves us all just wanting more. What do you wish you could include that isn't as explored as much as you'd like in here?
No.
Left on that floor of that cutting room.
Kerry, that original cut, the first one was over 8 hours.
Oh.
8.
Wow.
So now you can imagine how many beautiful moments are left. And for me, I try to focus on the most important messages that are surrounding the people. What I wanted really to try to do with this movie, to open to every human being something that he is not exposed. In today's world, specifically this pandemic, where we're locked in apartments, where we're locked in our kind of caves, we're not exposed to the reality that we created, damaged reality. And I wanted with this movie to open to every human being the disasters across the globe that we created. So with the first scene of the movie, people can realize, hey, there is a red line. When Pope walking through these doomsdays of the dirty clouds surrounding St. Peter's Square, and Pope is alone there, it only can happen in the doomsdays. It's something that, like, symbolizing for me personally, end of the world, Pope alone on a square. And I think what I'm trying to show to the people, we are at the red line where we need to really reevaluate what we're doing, what we achieved in all these disasters. And I think what I try to focus in the movie is the key elements of our society from across the globe that we created, the bad ones. And him initially showing the past to the future, showing us this hope that Father Martin just spoke to us, that Jose was just talking about, the possibilities that we as the humans can do. And I think that's the inspiration that I want people to take. And of course, there is so many fascinating moments that are left, and I hope to bring them slowly with the next year more and more out through the social media or through the different releases. A lot of human moments that people should be learning from him. And I think that's what I want to bring. And slowly, like I said, any media moments that are left out in today's world, we can bring through social media, share it, and again, to teach us humans to bring the change.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. We have just a few minutes left, so lightning round. I'd like to ask each of you for one scene from that movie that is just going to stay with you. So we'll start with you, Jose. One scene from that movie that touched you deeply.
Well, the whole movie is so extraordinarily well done that watching it, I was incredibly emotional, touched, moved by the whole life, the whole work of the Pope, and his trip to Iraq. What an extraordinary courage. And here in Timor-Leste, many simple people, my own staff, they had watched the trip to Iraq. They're all impressed how Iraqis reacted so warmly to the Pope. He brought hope to them. And I think that visit by His Holiness to Iraq, to the old ancient cradle of civilization, is a turning point in the reconciliation, in building bridges between Christian, Catholics, and the Muslim world. So for me, no particular scene, because the whole film around the life, the person of the Pope is so powerful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jose. Father Martin.
I'm a little biased because I work with LGBTQ people, but I thought the whole segment where he's working with the gay couple, talking to them about their family, and it's just extraordinary. And as Evgeny was saying, I think it's going to reveal things to people that happen behind the scenes that maybe people or insiders know, but that'll show people what a big heart he has.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And I want to add something, Kerry. People maybe don't know. And again, talking about this subject again, during the pandemic, Pope Francis helps transgenders who lost all the opportunities to work, transgenders in Italy, to the transgender community. So again, he's not about advertising these things. He's not talking about things. He is about doing things, doing things behind the scenes, either helping people of the communities like this, or helping Rohingyas, helping Syrian refugees, helping minorities. And that's Pope Francis, man of real action that sometimes we maybe don't see in the screen of the TV. He is preferring to be behind this. And one of the important elements that I learned about him being Jesuit, and I want to say again, thank you to the Jesuits, because Jose already mentioned how educated they are, and we have amazing Jesuit as Father Martin with us today. So thank you, Father Martin, being also with us. As these people, they don't want to be in front of the camera. They want to be in the corners of the world, exactly like Holy Father said to me. I'd rather be on the corners of the world helping people and not to be in front of the camera. And it's something that he is cherishing. It's something that shows he is the humanitarian and true humanitarian, because he is about help to every human being on this planet.
Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to show you an image that just when I saw this in that film, it made me weep. I had to stop the film for a moment to see that. Can you see it?
Yes.
That pockmarked image of Christ on the cross with his arms shot off, especially now during Easter, and the destructive force of violence and war in our world, and the need for generosity and love and peace was really affected me. I think the thing that I'll walk away most with from this film is the lesson of showing up. You know, sometimes we need food, clothes, and medical supplies, but sometimes you just need a person in your life to show up, to come to the door, to hold your hand, to tell you that you're loved. And I think that's what he does over and over and over again. He sees a problem in the world and he goes to that problem. And he tells people they're not alone, and that they're loved, and that they're worthy, and you know, and that we're all God's children. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful message for all of us to internalize ourselves and to share with one another. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground in this movie, but I'd like to ask each of you, what are the pressing global issues that leaders need to address today? Let's start with our global leader, José Ramos-Horta.
Very quickly, I would say nuclear weapons wars, conventional wars, and climate change, and inequities, extreme poverty, access to clean water, access to education, to healthcare. These are some of the greatest moral, political challenges of our times.
Thank you, Jose. Father Martin?
I would agree with those. I would say my top three would be climate change. If we don't have a planet, we're not going to have anything. The great discrepancies and inequalities between the very rich and the very poor, and just poverty in general. And then the question of refugees and migrants, something like 65 million of them. So those would be my top three.
Okay, thank you. And Evgeny?
I think we are still living in pandemic. And I think the world needs to be united and the leadership needs to be united in order to tackle this pandemic. Because only if leadership is united in the entire world, we can stop the pandemic. I think the cooperation between leaders needs to be to the minimum point that we can tackle the pandemic all together. That's number one. Number two, I think same thing can happen with the climate change. Only if leadership will be united, we can tackle the climate change. Not if few countries will be tackling this and the others not. No, it can't work this way. The leadership needs to find the path to work and collaborate together. Only united it can happen. And I think that's why at the end of the movie, Pope Francis said, we need a change that will unite us all. And I think that's the second point that I would love to state. And the refugees. I think the refugee crisis that we are having are larger than after Second World War. So I think we need to tackle these things again, just by collaboration and cooperation between the countries. Then we can go and bring the change.
Great, thank you. I would just add, I think if I could only do one thing to revolutionize the next generation, it would be to massively increase the social emotional intelligence of the next generation. And you know, the heart of that is empathy and love. And that's really what this movie demonstrates. And that's what the world needs. You know, the world needs now love, sweet love. And so, Jose, we've seen what happened with Aung San Suu Kyi, and you've been such a great advocate for the Rohingya population in Myanmar. Can you tell us your thoughts on what's happening there now?
It is the most tragic situation right now in Southeast Asia region. Millions and millions of people from Myanmar across the society, from simple farmers to bankers, doctors, academics, students, even the establishment diplomats of Myanmar, all on strike, all protesting. 90% of the country stands still because of the revulsion, the rebellion of the people against these military thugs. We cannot betray these people. We cannot betray that young dancer, 19 years old. She was a dancer. And she became the leader, one of the leaders of the people in the streets. She was shot dead right on her head by a military sniper. We cannot betray her. There has to be a mass movement in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, to bring down the military once and for all. The Myanmar is still ruled by the same people who for the last 60 years since independence have ruled, misruled, ruined the country. And they have to be put on trial, and the leaders. I'm very pleased with the United States position and the US and the European Union stepping up the pressure, economic, financial sanctions, targeting the military. The ASEAN leaders, particularly the president of Indonesia, the president of Malaysia, speaking out now, finally. And I am in touch with artists, movie stars, writers in Indonesia and elsewhere in the region to make this an Asian solidarity movement against the military in Myanmar.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your strong stance on behalf of democracy and those who are being repressed. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Jose,
Thank
good
you.
to see you,
Thank you.
sweetie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Jenny, it's so good to see you. And
Thanks,
Father
everyone.
Martin, we have to get back in touch.
I know we do. It's wonderful. Great to see you all. God bless you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Ciao. Bye.